Bruce. Once you get to question 6, at that next one, I'll have you stop for a second because those last two are kind of heavy.
Okay.
So, that last question, playing off this, what would you say is your greatest strength? So, yeah, we'll kind of stop there as far as before we get to some of those heavier stuff.
Okay.
Real quick, as we're kind of transitioning here a little bit, up there I've got our agenda. So what you're working on right now is our first thing, survey on Adeptus. So just kind of give you what's going to be happening. We got a short video over motivation and drive we'll do next. Discussion about background and influence, kind of playing off a little bit of, you know, where you're from, kind of what's motivated you a little bit.
Yes.
Some tips on managing, like I mentioned earlier, all that stress, and a feedback sheet. And kind of as we progress through this, I want you to be we're going to be setting some goals. And we're going to eventually be hitting up an action plan kind of near the end of this. And so I'm going to give you a chance to kind of build off what we're doing right now and be thinking and brainstorming so we can come up with a good action plan. So kind of as you're leaning into these last few questions, be thinking about, you know, what's my greatest strength when it comes to this, when it comes to that, and just kind of take some time to think about that if you need to, man. Again, no rush at all. Kind of step away so you don't feel like I'm trying to judge you.
Oh, no worries.
You're putting in some work.
Do you want me to put my name on top of this?
You don't have to, man. I mean, you can put KJ if you want. Yeah, you don't have to put your full name or anything. And I'll kind of stop you there, give your hand a break so you don't get carpal tunnel on. So as far as that question number 6, playing kind of off this, what would you say is your greatest strength when it comes to your work ethic?
I feel like my greatest strength when it comes to my work ethic in school is my perseverance. Like, I feel like, you know, like, even last year when I actually had to as a full-time teacher in math, you know, like some topics that I may have struggled with, you know, I'll just come to you after school and come and talk to you about it, and, you know, you give me some extra work to help me out with it. I just feel like, you know, I never like to give up or just feel like something's too hard to do.
Sure.
So I feel like, you know, that's kind of like my work ethic in school. I don't try to give up, and I try
Yeah.
to work my hardest.
Well, and I love that you took advantage too of recess, man. Not only would you come in and get extra work and ask me questions, but you were willing to stay 30, 40 minutes if you needed to retake
Yeah.
and get that grade up. And that's part of becoming an adult is you're willing to sacrifice that time,
Right.
sacrifice that energy when you could be spent, you know, doing other things
Yeah, I understand.
to get done what you got to do. I absolutely agree with that, man. I saw that in class last year. It's perseverance.
Yes, sir.
So how about question 7? Well, again, to try and give you a little bit longer of a break because, man, you've been putting in some work there. I was not expecting that kind of quality. I mean, I shouldn't be surprised after last year, but
For sure.
that's real quality right there.
Thanks.
So what would you say is your greatest strength when it comes to connecting with others? So we've talked about your work ethic. How about in the social sense?
I mean, honestly, I feel like, well, you didn't really know me when I was much younger, but like, I was really shy, and like, I feel like now, I mean, you've known me for 2 years. I feel like I'm an outgoing person, and you know, I feel like I'm easy to get along with, and like, I like to meet new people and speak to people. So like, you know, if there's like a new person in class, you know, like I know how it feels to be the new kid, you know,
Sure, I can
because
say.
I've moved 3 schools in my 3 years of high school,
Yeah.
except for this one. This is the only school I've been at for 2 years in high school, so I know how it feels. And I just like to, you know, like invite people and, you know, be open to them.
Sure.
Because, you know, like they may not know a lot of people yet.
Yeah. And when do you think, as far as you said you were really shy when you were a kid, when do you think that started to change?
I'd say, I feel like kind of like when I turned 12 or 13, I feel like, you know, like I was on my own a lot more because at my old school back home, it was a high school, but it had like 6th and 7th grade like attached to it.
Mhm.
So, you know, I was around juniors and seniors in high school on the basketball team,
Sure.
and you know, like going to games and stuff. You know, people would come up and talk to me, and where I was in a basketball club, we would go off to the States and go to basketball camps.
Mhm.
So, you know, like there'd be a lot of new faces and a lot of coaches there that, you know, that were helping us out. So I just feel like I just kind of like came out my shell and came out my comfort zone, and I was glad I did.
And you know, what you're mentioning right now is mentoring. You had people that were older than you that could mentor you. You said some of the older people on the team, coaches,
Yeah.
even friends on that team.
I was about to say, like a lot of the juniors and seniors on my old basketball team, they were like older brothers to me, you know.
Yeah.
They'd give me a hard time, you
Mhm.
know, but I mean, it made me who I am.
You had to come out of your shell, or else they would make you.
Exactly.
Yeah. I was gonna say they get you to talk one way or another.
They do.
Yeah. No, I got you, and that's awesome, and that's part of as you become an adult, man, and like go off to college and things like that. It is so important to have people around you that you can rely on and go to.
Right.
Even older students, like you know, you come in as a freshman and you're it's overwhelming because it almost always is for people.
Yeah.
A senior, you can go to and be like, hey, you know, they can tell you, I felt this way too. Here's what I did to help me through. They say drugs, don't do that.
Don't do it.
Find you a new
Won't do it,
senior.
yes.
Find you a new senior. But yeah, if they tell you, you know, here's how I got through this. Here's some good strategies you can use, man. Hopefully we'll talk a little bit about those today. But that mentoring is huge.
Right.
And I'm glad you mentioned that because, yeah, that's one of the big things we're going to be talking about. You know, you networked yourself. You got involved. Basketball club.
Yeah.
You may not have thought about it at the time, but you were building networking skills by saying, hey, I'm going to get to meet all these new coaches. You're going to introduce me to all these other players.
Right.
And I'm going to build a network that's going to help me come out of my shell. It's going to advance me as a person.
Yeah, and I definitely felt like sports helped me like more, like mentored me more definitely than like if I wouldn't have played sports and I just like had to be social because you know like on the basketball court like you know you may be playing with a person you've never even met before but you
Right.
end up talking to them.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah.
You got to get that help defense.
Exactly,
You got to
yeah.
tell them when they blow their coverage and get a wide open layup.
Right.
I'm going to cover that next time. I gotcha. And so, last question there. This one's multiple choice, so I'll let you kind of stew on this for a minute
Okay.
and kind of pick which one you think meets that criteria.
It's definitely probably gonna be that adulthood preparation.
You think so?
I think so.
We're going to be talking about that then. Yeah, so you think an adulthood preparation?
Yeah, I mean, like, and my mom's done a great job, like, talking to me about it, and, like, she's, you know, and I mean, I feel like me moving out here as well, being, like, away from my family,
Sure.
I moved when I was 15, so I left a little bit younger than some people do,
Mhm.
and, like, I feel like this has helped me grow up a lot as well, because, like, the guys that, there were a couple, I think I've told you that there were a couple other guys that moved out here from Ireland as well, or did I not mention that?
I think you mentioned it kind of a while back.
Right,
Maybe
when I
whenever-
first moved?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so like, I lived with those guys, and like, we were all from the same island, so you know, we were kind of like all like brothers to each other, and we still hang out and stuff. But
I got you.
like they were always older than me. I was always one of the youngest, so you know it always gave me like that big brother figure, and you know like somebody to look up to and to go to. Like I'll still call them when I'm going through a hard time, ask them what they think about it. But yeah, like my mom's told me it's gonna be real when I go to college.
Yeah.
I'm a little worried about it.
And it's good to know, and it's good not to walk in overconfident. I'd much rather you leave here knowing I'm going to probably have some challenges, but I'm going to be ready to tackle those when they come than to walk face first into a brick wall.
Right, yeah.
You know, you can at least be ready when that wall moves towards you all of a sudden. You can try and square up on it real quick, punch a brick or something at least. But, and I'm glad you mentioned your background, man, because you do have a really unique background. I mean, there's nobody from around here that could even, I assume, or, you know, understand kind of where you came from, your
Right.
culture, your background.
Right.
And I'm glad you said that shaped you. And kind of speaking of that background, that kind of leads me into our video that I just wanted to show about 1 minute and 40 seconds of.
Okay.
So let me turn off the lights so we can see this a little bit better. Put that there.
Do you want me to answer number 7 after the video?
Yeah, you can, man. Or you can be thinking about it while we're watching.
Okay, no problem.
And while we're watching this video, man, this is just kind of about your background, your conceptions, your misconceptions. Be
Right.
thinking about some things that maybe you may still believe, that maybe as you think about it, you're like, well, maybe I need to let go of that, or maybe I need to think about this in a new way.
Yes.
Just a little motivational video to get us thinking here.
My parents had a maths tutor for me because they wanted to be amazing at maths. I was pretty good at numbers, and I'd have this tutor, and he'd tell me that, he goes, the reason that you're struggling with the next question is because you're always worried about what your parents think. And that really stayed in my head. I was just like, wow, so as long as I'm trapped by what my parents think, I can actually never find the answers to the real questions of life. Most of us just throw ourselves into the deep end and then try swim and figure it out. The problem is we all went to normal schools that try to put stuff in us rather than take stuff out of us. You know, you were told at school that you weren't very good, and you weren't good at English, and now you have a New York Times bestseller, right?
Yeah.
And it's like no one noticed that potential inside you. No one noticed that, oh, Lewis was really creative. And you're not the only person. There's so many people who feel like that. So the modern schooling system didn't extrapolate your self-actualization, your element, and just try to put maths, English, science inside. So the point is that you're trying to get to such a strong foundation that when you interact in the world, you're going with a sense of strength, fuel, energy to make a difference, rather than going into the world and then going, oh my God, where am I, trying to figure it out. People were so far removed from their own understanding of themselves that they were either lost living the life they didn't want to, lost living up to someone else's expectations, or lost becoming someone to impress someone else.
And I think that's kind of the important thing there is sometimes I think we live our lives, especially once you leave here, kind of even growing up, we can live our lives for somebody else.
Right.
And I think part of what we're going to be talking about today, building up your independent skills, building up those adult skills, is kind of finding out, okay, not only what do I want, but how can I achieve that?
Right.
Because it's great that we have backgrounds. Like, I learned so much from my parents. But once you leave here, you're going to enter a world where there's going to be a lot of different things to pull from, a lot of different avenues, a lot of different philosophies.
Right.
And it's going to be important to not only be strong yourself, but to also be open-minded.
Yeah.
And to have a plan that can say, hey, I'm willing to look at this and see what this is, and maybe it checks out, maybe it doesn't.
Yeah.
And that just comes with self-actualizing.
Right. And I feel like my mom kind of instilled that in me as well. She's always told me there's always two sides to a story. But I mean, she's stubborn. I'm kind of stubborn too.
Oh, okay. So there's always two sides to the story. It's just one of them's right and one of them's wrong, right? Okay. Okay, I see.
My
I
mom
see.
always my mom always used to be right, but I mean.
And that's the thing. I think every good parent, and I know you had great parents, but every good parent's going to tell you they don't know everything.
Yeah.
And just because what they experienced is what they experienced, and they took wisdom from that, that doesn't mean that's also what you're going to experience.
I may not go through the same things.
Yeah, I mean, you're over here, you're doing your own thing. You've already seen that when you moved here. I mean, it's a lot to pick up.
Yeah,
It's different.
It was a world of difference.
Yeah, and so hopefully you've been able to pick up some of those adult skills just to survive kind of this change of atmosphere.
Yeah.
But something I wanted to do now was kind of discuss some expectations you have for yourself. And so, kind of as we're discussing that, and maybe discuss what others have said about you and what they expect of you. So as you're kind of thinking about that, go ahead and be answering number 7. Kind of that question about connecting with others. And so, kind of, what were you thinking as far as social-wise, connecting with others?
I was thinking that, like, I feel like there's been a lot of things happen in my life that like I can relate to, people around my age, and I've had a lot of like people, I've had like some sophomores and some freshmen, come and ask me like, hey, this is going on, like, what do you think about this? And, if it's something that I've went through, I told them, how I coped with it, and everybody's different, but I just feel like, they just wanted to hear an opinion from someone else, and I feel like I'm really open, and I feel like I'm approachable, and I'm easy to talk to.
You really are.
And I like to be a reliable person, so people can know that they can come to me when they want to talk, or
Sure.
if they need something, I like to be able to help people.
And that's going to be huge, especially once you get on a campus, full of God knows how many thousands of people.
Right.
To be approachable and to be sociable and to have people know they can hang around you and trust you. Because that's going to help you network in a way that going out and leaving, your business cards on places, not to get into careers or anything, but that's a different kind of networking.
Yeah.
We're talking social networking, and that's going to be something that can build you friends for life, that can get you some tutoring on that science test you weren't expecting, when all of a sudden one of the guys you took in and embraced is like, hey, I'm actually pretty good at that. Let me help you out with that.
Yeah.
I had somebody like that with me when I went to EKU. I was struggling with math, and I didn't even mean for it to happen, but I befriended somebody who I didn't know worked at the math tutoring department.
Oh, wow.
And so we got to become friends, and then when I found that out, he was helping me out all the time. I was helping him out, giving him rides and stuff, and it was one of those partnerships where I still talk to the guy,
Right.
6 years later.
Yeah.
And so kind of as we're talking about your strengths, maybe areas for growth, what I thought we'd do here as we're coming down the stretch is just kind of take a look at some strategies here. You're going to see I want to say 5 things up top.
Yeah.
And I just want to give you just about 30 seconds to a minute, just kind of read over those. You don't have to write anything down. You can, it's up to you. Just kind of read. And we're going to kind of go from there. We're going to brainstorm how these things maybe could impact you moving forward. It's about 30 seconds to a minute. And so, kind of as you're finishing up reading those, it looks like you have.
Yeah.
Let's start by maybe circling some that we feel like we're pretty strong with. We've got get organized, start and finish ahead of time, so being proactive, asking for help, and so some of those, which ones do we feel pretty strong with?
I wish I could put like a half circle around get organized.
We could put like a what's the emoji where it's like you're not smiling but you're not frowning. It's just
yeah,
like
it's
that.
kind of like the straight face.
Yeah, the blank stare. I
blank
got you.
stare.
Well, no, I appreciate you being like, you could always get better.
Yeah, like I feel like I'm not off but getting organized,
Sure.
but I feel like I could definitely do a better job.
Well, and being halfway decent at being organized is a miracle for high school.
Yeah, like I actually cleaned out my backpack like the other week and I had papers from like the start of school. Like,
Yeah.
I got that big package.
That's amazing. But now, as far as areas maybe of weakness, things we can grow, anything you see there?
I feel like feel like sometimes I need to do a better job of not being so impulsive, and like maybe like like reassessing a situation before I do react. Because I mean sometimes I feel like I'm a bit of a hothead. So.
See, that surprised me, KJ. You thinking like on the soccer field?
No,
or
or just kind of like social. Like sometimes stuff just like I just let things get to me that I probably should let go.
I got you. And man, that happens to all of us
Yeah.
sometimes. I mean, me and most of my family we're chill, but everybody has a breaking point, man. And it's important that you acknowledge that, hey, maybe I could make that restraining effort even a little bit greater.
Yeah, my mom always tells me to be the bigger person. But,
Sure.
Yeah. And I mean, I feel like I'm pretty good at networking because I mean, like, I feel like I can talk to people and I feel like that kind of ties into asking for help,
Mhm.
because like, if you ask somebody for help and then they lead you in the right way,
Yeah.
I feel like that starts building networks as well. Just like Stephen, our team trainer.
Yeah.
I told him that my back was bothering me, so he ended up referring me to Dr. Henderson, and now I go to Dr. Henderson for my Henderson chiropractic for my back. So
I got you. Okay, well, and that's awesome, man. And you're right. One of the hardest ways to network is to ask people. Just ask questions.
Right.
Because I know for me, and especially generations that come after me, maybe yours and those that come after,
Yeah.
it can be difficult to want to like go up and just say something to somebody. Like
Yeah.
ask them and put yourself out there and let yourself be vulnerable.
Right.
And that is so awesome, man, that you feel comfortable doing that. Because there's a quiet confidence about going up and asking people and saying,
Right.
hey, I don't know this.
Yeah.
That takes confidence.
Yeah, a lot of people always feel scared to ask questions. It's like you're only holding yourself back.
Yeah, man. I mean, the only thing that's going to happen when you ask a question is you're either going to get the help you need.
Right, or they're just gonna say no.
Yeah, I mean, there's no negative to
Right.
it. If anything else, you're just going to have to move on and see if you can find somebody else for that positive.
That's actually something my mom always told me. She said, KJ, if you're gonna ask somebody a question, it's either gonna be yes or no, and if it's something else, then just don't worry about it.
Yeah, exactly. You don't got time to wade through the mud.
Exactly.
So kind of the last thing we're going to do here is, as we start to wrap up a little bit, is I want us to take some of the stuff we've written down on our survey,
Yeah.
take some of the things we've been talking about with our strategies, and I want us to kind of put some stuff together, combining your strengths and your kind of things you feel more comfortable about to help us attack maybe even some of our weaknesses,
Yeah.
and to help us get ready as we kind of transition into that adult life. What's maybe you think a good first step as far as you're kind of moving on from here?
I feel like my organization. I feel like that should be like my first step. Once I can like have like a plan and I can start scheduling things better, I feel like I would be able to like maximize my time
Sure.
when I go to college.
Then would you want to maybe put down step one, we'll put get organized?
Yeah.
And then let's be specific about it too as you're writing that down.
Okay.
I can think of a couple things me and you have talked about that we could apply that to.
Right. Get organized.
So,
Get organized with with my schoolwork.
and actually I was even thinking, Sue, I'll let you write that down, go ahead. And as you're writing that, I was thinking, Sue, you talked about recruiting,
Right.
kind of getting all the ducks in a row. I know you said you've been pushing some of the coaches about, letting you know as we get into almost
like
December.
the latter months.
Yeah, so maybe even creating a priority list. So you could even put, / recruiting, Kind of the same thing's gonna apply with recruiting, saying, okay, here are my preferences, here's how I need to attack this list in this order.
Yeah.
And then I'm trying to think of even other things. I know you're still deciding on college, you're still deciding on recruitment.
Yeah.
It's just about getting all your ducks in a row.
Yeah.
That way you can attack things most effectively.
Right.
Sure. Do you communicate mostly through email?
Yeah, I have a couple coaches. I've had a couple coaches' numbers and like me that have
Mhm.
actually talked like over the phone. But yeah, most of the time I send out emails and then they'll reply to me and that's how I've gone through these ID camps. They invited me out to the ID camp.
Sure. And I was gonna say, I know too, you're usually gonna get a more honest answer on the phone.
Yeah.
Email wise, sometimes people can kind of hide behind an email,
Yeah.
and it's good that some coaches give you their number to say, hey, I can tell you voice to voice, person to person, real time, exactly what I can tell you about how much playing time you're gonna get potentially.
Right.
That, How about let's get maybe at least one or two more things we can kind of take forward from here to kind of start practicing day to day. We can catch up on. So besides getting organized, what's maybe something else you said?
Yeah, probably also like, like maybe me, like probably like talking things over in my head to myself,
Sure.
like kind of like impulsiveness and like my control of my emotions. I feel like that could be something I can definitely work on daily in school.
Sure. And I think doing that will help you stay clear-minded so you can be more organized and do things like that. Absolutely. Yeah. And we'll talk a little bit about how you can kind of work through that too. I may hand you this here in a second when you get done with that. Kind of connects with what you're talking about.
Okay.
Yep.
Mr. Harris.
Yeah.
Where do you think like studying would kind of fall in? Do you feel like that would kind of be able to get organized?
I think honestly that would be start and finish ahead of time,
Okay.
being proactive. Absolutely.
Alright.
You want to maybe throw that in as like a third thing we can work
Yeah,
on,
I will.
since that's a little bit different from kind of what you're talking about. Because I know a lot of times what you're talking about is social, emotional, which can bleed into your work ethic and stuff
Yeah.
like that for sure. Sure. So yeah, I love that you transitioned into that. Yeah, being proactive. I think that's that second step.
Yeah, I feel like I need to do a better job of like, not like studying for my classes, because like whenever I have a test coming up or like, like a class is bothering me or like I have a paper to write, like I do my work and stuff and I usually get it done. But like I kind of like the ACT, like I feel like I kind of need to do like, just like a little bit every day just to,
Sure.
keep myself going.
And man, most days I can stay after. We want to do even just 5-10 problems a day. It's all about, especially math, it's all about that repetition, that
Yeah.
practice. That's huge. So yeah, I love that you're thinking that, man. That being proactive is huge, especially if you can build that habit in high school. Because it only gets tougher to build in college when you have a million things going on.
Right.
I think those are some good plans, man. And I'm glad we've been able to apply them a little bit more to you, who you are, between recruiting, school, social.
Right.
I think that's huge. And just some final things before we wrap up. As far as, by the way, you're not crazy if you talk to yourself. I know that says self-talk. I do that all the time. Sometimes you just gotta work through your problems.
No, and that's exactly how I received it too. I know what you mean, kind of like talking to your own
Yeah.
mind. I know what you mean.
You're kind of arguing with yourself.
Exactly.
When you do that, you weigh the pros and cons, and you start to say, okay, maybe I don't need to do that.
Right.
And the big one, I think you are fantastic on healthy living. I know you work out, play soccer, you're doing great.
Yes, sir.
Healthy thinking, I think you got a really positive attitude. Like we said, we can always build on that with just like a little bit less impulsive. You acknowledge that, and I mean, we all could be. Big thing I think is healthy actions. That ties into what you were talking about.
Yeah.
Getting organized, tackling a problem one at a time, making sure you're getting enough sleep. That's a big one, man, that not a lot of people think about.
Right.
If you're not getting enough sleep, you're not able to focus.
Yeah.
You don't have the energy to take care of the demands that you're gonna have to run into. And so just some things like that I think I'll give you a second to kind of read over, especially those healthy actions. And then we'll get ready to wrap up a little bit.
I feel like healthy actions is definitely key to everything. Just being able to solve problems one at a time instead of trying to deal with everything at once.
And that comes with getting organized and then being proactive. So you're not trying to tackle them as they're due.
Right.
I have a bad habit of trying to tackle problems right at the deadline, and that gives you no wiggle room for
You either got to get it done or you don't.
Yeah, or if you don't, that's big time
Yeah,
trouble because you're
right.
out of time. And so, man, any final thoughts kind of as we look back at our action plan here, as we look back at our survey?
Yeah.
I know we've created some goals kind of moving forward that we can monitor and that we can talk about kind of in the weeks to come.
Yeah.
And as a see at ACT tutor, which hopefully I will.
Alright.
I want you to be able to not have to worry about that as you leave.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Any final questions though, man?
What are some things that I could do to like just deal with like my stress, and like I don't have a whole lot of stress, right? I know like it's still gonna be pretty easy for senior year, but like going like into college and stuff, like what's the kind of things I can do? Just like it says like time with friends, fun activities, just like things I enjoy.
The best thing I could tell you to do is manage your time well. When you need to do work, get work done. Because what that's going to do is that's going to give you more time on your own time to work on things that are going to de-stress you.
Right.
That's going to give you more time to get sleep done instead of cramming to study for a test or a paper. You know, if you wait too long to do that, you do it over little bits of time, you're still getting plenty of sleep, and it's giving you time to go out and hang with friends for an hour or two.
Yeah.
Instead of maybe getting to hang out with them for 5 hours one night, and then no hours for, while you're working on that paper.
Yeah.
So, but managing your time, I think making sure you're eating well.
Yeah.
One of the worst things that happens to people is they get so stressed and pressed for time, they either stop eating or they overeat to try and manage their stress.
Right.
And that's where the freshman 15 comes in. So making sure that not only do you have a good healthy diet, but also that you're managing your time well. And I said it before, but man, getting sleep. If you are not getting sleep, you're going to be the most stressed out human being alive. There's nothing better than a good 7 or 8 hours of sleep. Nothing on that list I can tell you or show you is better than just letting your body rest.
Right.
Because the more you rest, the more energy you're going to have. And the more energy you're going to have, the less stressed you're going to be. Because the more energy you have, you're going to feel like, I can handle all this.
Yeah.
One at a time, not all at
One
once.
at a time.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Thank you.
And we can keep talking about it, because I know I've been in college, just a few years ago, so I still remember the grind. Anything else?
What is that freshman 15 about?
Oh, have you not heard that?
No.
Really?
Yeah.
So freshman 15 is like whenever you, people a lot of times their freshman year, they're used to parents cooking, they're used to eating healthier, because the parents tend to cook healthier.
Right.
And so when you go off to college and you're in a rush, people start grabbing fast food a lot.
Right.
And they're studying for tests a lot, and they're sitting around hanging with friends a lot. And if you're not going to the gym and you're not eating healthy, they pack on 15 solid pounds their freshman year.
Okay.
And it's a real thing. Thankfully, it didn't happen to me. I know 1,000 people it's happened to.
Wow.
That's why I'm telling you, they don't get enough sleep, and if you don't get enough sleep, that's a good way to gain weight.
Yeah, I was about to say, your body's not burning that fat off when
Mhm.
you sleep, right?
That's what I'm telling you, man.
Yeah.
It's legit.
Yeah, because I heard that I heard the woman at Louisville talk about like the freshman 15. Then she said, did you say like sophomore 10?
Yeah, sophomore 20,
Oh, sophomore 20.
junior 40. Yeah, it just gets worse. if you
I was
don't
like,
manage it.
I didn't know what she
Yeah.
meant.
You can't catch up on sleep. That's a lie. You don't catch up on it. You got to make sure you're getting it.
Right.
So, yeah, that's great, man.
Yeah, I didn't know what that was about.
All right, well, hey, thank you for having me clarify. You don't want to gain it. You don't want to come back 15 pounds heavier and be like, oh, that's what he meant.
No, I know.
Anything else, man?
I mean, honestly, I feel like we went over like everything that was necessary. I mean,
And I mean,
with like realistic goals though. Like,
Yeah.
Like I feel like even like coaches that have talked to me as well, they're like, you gotta have short-term goals and long-term goals.
Absolutely. Because those short-term goals are going to motivate you, and they're going to be easier to do so that you're building up that positivity to be like, I can handle that long-term goal.
Yeah.
And a lot of times those short-term goals will build to the long-term goals.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes people set long-term goals and then like they get upset when they don't achieve them because they don't have any short-term.
Exactly. Yeah, you can't set the bar so high that you're not ready to clear it ever.
Mhm.
You got to make those steps to where it's going to become easier to make it over.
Yeah, I feel like I need to I feel like I do have some short-term goals. Like I was just like my short-term goal was gonna be like, end up committing to a college, and my long-term goal was gonna like start with my degree and like my major and stuff.
Sure. Man, that's awesome, because that's a big thing, setting those short-term goals, and again, getting organized can be a good way of establishing those short-term goals that then can lead you to not be impulsive whenever maybe you don't meet a short-term goal, or you don't feel like you're going to meet a long-term goal. You're not going to get impulsive and say, I'm just going to give up.
Yeah.
I can be like, hey, I didn't get this one, I'm going to get the next one,
Yeah.
and we're going to build to it.
Sorry.
Anything else, KJ, before get our feedback form and you get carpal tunnel officially?
Oh no, I'm ready.
I'll let you write some short answers on that one, man. I tried to make the questions as basic and simple for you as possible, because I know you've been doing a lot of writing, you've been putting in a lot of work.
No problem.
And you just put, KJ, you don't have to write that all out. Thank you, man. And so, you can just kind of however many words you feel like you need. Doesn't need to be a lot if you don't want it to be. And then once you get done, we're good to go.